In this video, we're going to focus on how we can create here a nice data label where we also put in the sum total specifically related to the stacked bars here, as you can see. So all of these have individual arrays and we're going to calculate them. And you can see here it shows you 12 of 20 and then plus 5 and then plus 3, which would make 20, of course. So let's start to explore how we can do this together with the data labels. In this video, we're going to focus on how to sum data points values from a stacked bar chart in Chartjs. So this question came from one of my other videos about how to show values inside a stacked bar chart in Chartjs, which is basically here we're going to use the data label. So I assume in this case, the question will be probably matching with this. So if I scroll down here, and a special thank you here for Renzo Andre Silva Miranda, for asking the question, and this is what Renzo asked. Thanks for sharing the video, you helped me a lot. Please, can you show how to make a sum with the values from the stack bar? Alright, so I assume this question is in connection with this specific video, so we want to have the data labels and where we can see not only the values here, but of course the sum value within there. So what we're going to do here now is to start working on that. To do this, I need to get my default code, so make sure you go to chartjs3.com getting started, and here to get the default code. For some reason, my Google Chrome gives this weird error, but Firefox and my other computer all work fine. Anyway, what we need here basically is this chunk of code here. So I'm going to copy this code, and I'm going to paste this in here. And once I paste this in here, I want to get the title here, put it in there, save this, and then refresh. There we are. So now we have this here. And what I want to do next is start to convert this wonderful chart into a stacked bar chart. To do this, what I want to do at least is to add here some extra data sets to create those. So we're going to do here another data set and we paste that in there. So what I'm going to say here, this is the, let's say green line or green sales. This is the blue division and this is the red division here. So just for the sake of it, we have these colors here, so I'm going to copy this. So we have it color coordinated. The first one is red, so I'm going to put in here also for the border color, but make sure that this is solid. The next one is the blue line, so the blue or the blue bars. So basically this one, the second value is blue. Put it in here, put it in there. Alpha value of 1. Finally, we have here the green one, which is the fourth value here. I'm going to paste this in there, paste that one in there. Make sure that this is correct. And here what I would like to do is to give this a value of at least a different value so it's easy to spot. And this one will be as well 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Final item what I want to do, this is just a bonus. We can remove this here just to be more concise. We can just put it in the options. So when we do this, if I save this right now, you will see it will disappear. But what I want to do now is of course here put in the options, put the border width in here. So we only have one time the code, save this, refresh, there we are, beautiful. Next, how to convert it into a stacked bar? Well, that's quite straightforward. We say here stacked, then we say here true, comma. Make sure you have a comma here because we have another item value or another value here, or else you get an error or breaking change. So we put in here comma, and then here in the x-axis we also say stacked. So it will know that we need to create a stacked bar chart. Now we have here the chart, which is absolutely phenomenal. It works nicely. So what we're going to do now is the following. It's time to start to use the data labels, because we want to have the data labels shown in here. And what I do also want to do first is let's remove the tooltip. I don't like the tooltip. It's blocking my view. So here in the options, in the skills, just below here, I'm going to say here plugins, and then just say here tooltip, and we say enable equals false. Once we do that, there we are, no more tooltip, so it will not block our view when we are starting to work on the code. What I want to do next here, of course, is to get the data labels link. So this is the official data labels link here, which is the latest one, which is version 2.0.0. So that's quite nice. You can see here libraries, Chartjs, dash, plugins, data labels. This is the entire link we need. What you can do here is just to copy the script tag here. And once we copy that, we're going to paste this down in here. So make sure this is below this specific JavaScript library or the Chartjs library. Why? Chartjs library has certain variables and content in there that this needs to first see, or else it won't give an error. So very important. This first, secondly, this is dependent on whatever is in here. Save this. Once we save this, nothing happens yet. We didn't activate or register the plugin yet. So let's register it. In here, in the options, just at the very end of the options, we put a comma. And then we say plugins. And in this plugins, we're going to say here chart with capital C, data labels. All right, so pay attention. Capital C for Charlie, D for Delta, and L for Lima. Save this, refresh, and now we have our values here, which is beautiful. So this works nice. But of course, we're not done yet. And the reason why we're not done yet is we need to put in now the item in here. So how can we do this? For this, we need to use the plugin functionality of the data label. So I'm going to say here a data labels, which is our object. And this object, the reason we are allowed now to do this is because we have activated this plugin, and this plugin recognizes that this command here is a specific command for the data labels. And we activated this, and that's why we have this one here that loads this here. Very important. So now in here, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to play around here with this value. So if you want to say we want to sum this value here, and here's the tricky part. So if you can see, our array here is always from left to right, meaning this one here. It always goes on the data set itself, not in a vertical way that is not with the single data set connected. So basically we want this plus that, which is a different type of array that we need to build. We can do this easily with the array.map functionality or the map method. So this is a very powerful method. We're going to work on this. However, to get that to work, we must do the following. We're going to say here formatter. And the formatter is what we call a callback, which allows us to create functions and variables that we want to extract. And in our case, you can see here we get these variables. We want to extract these, and we want to combine them into a temporary new array. This temporary new array is 18, 1, and 3, basically connecting these individually with each other. And that's what we need. So what we're going to say here, we say formatter, and in the formatter we will say value, and we get another value here as well, or another item, which is context. So this is a callback, so it's a function itself. This is a function expression. Normally it's like this function, and then you would do like that. But now in our case, we don't have to write the function because it's a function expression. We can use this here to shorten it, which is a better way, ES6 coding. Next, what we want to do is the following. We're going to say here, well, let's first do a console log. And my goal here is just to make sure you understand what these items are. What is the value and what is the context in this case here. Save this, refresh, open up the developer tab, and you can find here now it loads a lot. You can see it loads here 18, then 12, which is correct as this one here. It will loop through all of these items, and then it goes back here to number 1. If we go here, the number 1, which is this one, then it keeps on going here, and then after it will go to number 3, which is this one here, and loops all of these items. So we loop through this, but we don't want to loop through every individual array or index. We only want to loop at the first value of this or whatever it would be depending on the loop. So if this is index 0, we want to loop index 0 of these of every data set. Now we want to have here index number 1, which is Tuesday, and it will be also for every data set, etc., etc. So we're going to work on that. So sounds very complicated. Don't worry, it is basically it sounds more complicated than it really is. So what we're going to do here, and what we want to have is this. Sorry, before I even continue on, look at the objects here. We got here this information, and what we need here, you can see here index, data index 2. And this is probably because we are now somewhere hovering over this value here, which is, well, we can just check. This is data index this. Can we see here maybe the value, the data? I'm not seeing exactly the data index. Do I see here the value? I don't see here yet the value which is referring to. Data index 2, so, and then this is data set index. So probably it is referring to number 6, which is this item here. So what we're going to do now is just play around with this, or specifically here on the data index. This is the one I really want. So let's look at this. So we have the data index, and how we get the data index is from context.data index. And then we have another one. Let's get the data set as well. We're going to get here from the data set, not the data set itself. I want to have here the data set index. This is the one. So if I save this now, and I'm going to hide this value, don't need this, refresh, we will loop through everything, but it will grab us all these values. These values are crucial because 0, 0 equals 18. This would be 0, 1, 0, 2, and then this would be 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 1, and this will be 1, 2. Alright, so these are, remember, these are arrays. So this is very important. You have a solid understanding of arrays. I have a whole video course about Chartjs with arrays. If you want to understand it, definitely check that entire series. It's on YouTube. Anyway, let's start to look. So what we need to do here is the following. We're going to grab this, but we need to loop through this with a map functionality. So that's what we're going to do now. So first of all, I'm going to say constant. And let's say this constant is the sum value of the array, or every individual array. And then what we want to do is the following. We're going to grab here the context. So what we need here, and I guess, oh wait, let me just show this one before I even continue on. We have here the context, because what I really want is this. Let's comment this out. Save this, refresh. So we get all of this information. But I want to dig deep here into the chart. And here in the chart, we can now start to go back into the config. So there's the configuration here, somewhere with the C, config, alright. Then in the config, you can ignore this one here. We need to have the following, which would be the data related item. That is this one here. Let's click on this. This is an object as well. Here the data, and then we have the data sets. And then of course here, you see what we need. And basically we want to only loop through this, but only on the first value, or whatever the value is, depending on. So that's what we're going to do right now. So if we grab this, well, let's grab this source here. If we go here, you can see it's chart, config, data sets. That shows us already where we need to be. So you have here in the context, it's a chart.config data sets. And if you are very aware, let's save this one. If you are very aware with my other videos, you probably know that this is my chart, which refers now here to the chart at this starting point. Then here we go config, which is this, and in config we go here into data, and the data goes here into the data sets. That's basically what we're doing. We're just going back in here, but using now this part, because this is what we call callback, where it grabs a value. It's still loading for the value before it starts to display. So it grabs this value and search for it. So what I want to do here, well, if I just do this, you will see here now, if I refresh, we always get the red cells here. So if I do the following, let's say here data, and then data will be 0. We grab now number 18, which is correct. So if I would do the following, so we have seen here this. We have this context, well, we can do here, because eventually I need this one here, the data index. So if I only want to get this one here, you will see here, if I copy this and save this and refresh, you see we are now also getting all the values previously. Alright, but now in specifically, I guess this one is looping through the 0 data set. Alright, enough about explaining all this stuff, because it can be very confusing. What I want to do now is just to loop through this, because if you know how we can do this, it can loop through this, and this will be automatically because of the map array. So we're going to say here, we're just going to grab this entire part, data, context, and then we say here, data sets without any number. Why? We're going to say here dot map. Because with the map, we're going to loop through this every data set in here. But we want to loop now very specifically into the data itself, not in the data sets, because the data set contains all these information. I don't want that. I only want the data and then the specific index wherever we are at that time. So what we're going to do here, this, and then we say here, well, we can say here a value. Let's grab the value. We can just call the value maybe a data set, or let's call this a data point. Yes. So what does this really mean? This would be then every item in here would be called a data point. So that's basically what we want here. So that's one item here, all right. But then what we need to do here is the following, because we need to create a tiny function out of it. So what we're going to do in here is the following. We can say now, let's get the console log. So, and the console log is basically the value, or basically the data point. And then we do this data point here. And then we say dot. We can say here the data, because we want to go not only this, because this is the data sets what we are in now. But we want to get the data. And the data is, maybe this should not even be data point, but it should be a data set individually, but that's alright. But here we want to get the context data index. So if we save this now and refresh, what happens? Oh, let's do. I have a lot of console logs here. Let's save that, refresh. Now we loop through here again nicely. So this is fine. Of course, we have to still work on some extra items, but we're now getting all of this data that we need. As you can see here, look, in our order now, 18, 1, and 3, which is 18, 1, and 3. The next one will be 12, 2, 3, and there you are. So we get this order or the sequence now in the right structure. So all we have to do now, of course, is to start reducing them. So what we're going to do here is the following. I'm going to say here, enter. We're going to return a value. And what are we going to return? Well, we're going to return this specific item, of course. So this can be commented out. And if I do this now and refresh, everything works still fine. Of course, you don't see it yet until we do here this console log. We can say here the sum value. Save that. Refresh. Look at this. Now we have the arrays in the way we want to have them. You can see it recognizes 3 items and in that exact order. So now we have this. What we want to do next is eventually sum these together. So we have this is the sum value of the array, but it's not really the sum value because it still needs another function in here. So let's remove this now. We have a lot of junk here. I'm going to just delete a lot of items here. We don't need all of this. This creates too much confusion. Same here. Let's remove this one. And then what we want is the following. I'm going to say here the next function, and this function is what we call the reduce function. Or basically we want to reduce it, array reduce. So let's say reduce or sum it up. Total sum, maybe a total sum, that's probably better. So then we say here the total value, we want basically 2 values, the total and the data point. And here the data point is this now, it's not anymore this one, but the data point is now based on later on the sum value that we grab, which is these 3 here. So it will start then as a 0 plus 18, and then from 18 plus 1, and then etc, etc. So that's what we want to do here. So this is a tiny function here. To make sure that this function works, we say here return total plus the data point. So once we've got this here, and I can maybe put a semicolon here, we have this. The last item is the let sum, I guess, because it's the sum or the sum total, it doesn't matter. Let sum, I guess that's fine. And then we say here the following. We want to grab here the sum value. And then we say a dot reduce, because this is the reduce function with the array, and or basically this is regarding to the array method, but it will be connected with this function here. So we say here the following. We will say here the sum total, which is this function. We say connect to this function here, comma, and starting point would be 0. So we start at 0, and then we start to add up here all of these numbers. So once we have this here, we can now start to give a return value. And the return value here, I'm going to use ES6 or ES6. This is a template literal. So template literal means that we can concatenate in an easier way, which is according to the ES6 function. So we say here, because basically we have the value. So what we want to do here is the following. So we're going to grab the value here. This is this value. We're going to copy this. We say here value, which will basically show, well, let's save this first. Refresh. So you can see here, oh, of course, this is of course not allowed. So let me show you here this, and then I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I realize I need to put in the curly braces. Anyway, these are the numbers here. This is the return value. So now if I do same here with curly braces, and we do here backticks. So what are backticks? Backticks is basically ES6 command where you can easily concatenate, and backticks are below on your keyboard below the escape button. And then here we could now concatenate, let's say hello or value, anything you can see here. This is a very simple way. But what I want to do here then is say value of, and then here we're going to grab the value of the sum. And the sum is of course a variable or let variable. So if I save this now, refresh, you can see here now we have 18 of 22, 1 of 22, and etc, etc. So we have the sum value shown here, and of course you have the individual value shown here. We can even try again. Let's put in another item and see if it will calculate again. So if I add this up, you can see here now it starts to increase, and now it's 25. So it's fully automated as well. So this is basically the way how you can sum the values in a horizontal bar chart and show it nicely on your data labels. So if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend you to check out one of my other videos about how to use data labels plugin with data structures in Chartjs. With that, you can basically build almost similar to what we did here, but then with data structures where you organize the data far better, and that will eventually simplify also your coding. Highly recommend to watch this.